Well, the last time we played this deck, we just ended up going salt mining by accident, so hopefully it goes better this time. God Eternal Oketra versus Meren of Clan Toth with a very slow hand. I'm just going to hope that my opponent has a slow hand as well, so we'll keep that. As soon as we see Sol Ring, I think we can write this game off. Okay, so we're on the play. I don't know if I have Mistveiled Plains in this deck, but if we do, we can get that out on turn 1. That is a tapped Plains. I don't think we do have it in this deck. Nope, just a bunch of snow-covered Plains, so we'll drop that and pass. Alright, well, no turn 1 play from our opponent, so hopefully we can just slow roll our way out to either a Palace Jailer or the Coercive Portal. Probably the Portal first. Then the Commander afterwards, followed by Palace Jailer. Yeah, they still don't have anything, so they're going to go as slow as we are. And we've got a turn 3 play at least there. And the first spell of the game for Meren as well. A Cultivate, taking them up to 5 mana next turn. Let's get some card draw going with a Coercive Portal. In 1v1 we can force the draw on this, no matter what our opponent votes for. They either agree with us or they go for a draw, in which case we get to draw a card. Final parting, search your library for 2 cards, one into your hand and one into your graveyard. There's some combos you can get going with this thing. They put the Golgari Grave Troll into the bin, so no doubt they're going to dredge that out next turn. And they will mill themselves for 6. Always yield to this. And we're going to go for Homage. And we just get into Arcane Signet. Could have done with that a turn earlier, but not to worry. We'll just go in for God Eternal Oketra. And we can start getting commander damage off on our opponent straight away here. Then next turn, perhaps we go for the Palace Jailer if our opponent gets a creature into play. So let's get 6 points of commander damage onto our opponent here. And I'm going to have our commander go into the graveyard when it dies, and then it'll go into the library, 3rd from the top, so we need to actually have it go into the library as well. Because we've got card draw in play, so if we draw 2 cards next turn, that'll put our commander on top. And we can actually draw 3 cards a turn if we've got the Palace Jailer in play with the Monarchy as well. A Mind Slicer from our opponent. Can they sacrifice it is the question. Well, there's a Lightning Greaves, so we're not going to be able to exile it. So as long as they can't sacrifice that, I think we're okay to just keep taking a hit for 4. Might have been a better idea for our opponent to leave that back so that we were discouraged from swinging in with God Eternal Oketra. Anyway, what was I saying before? We need that to go to graveyard and not the command zone. Okay, I've clicked that 3 times now. There we go. Graveyard, library. So now it will actually hit those zones. And again, vote in the same way, doesn't matter how our opponent votes. And we get into Cavern of Souls and Sword of the Animist. We can't equip Sword of the Animist. So let's just go for another Plains. We'll throw down the Arcane Signet. And we'll also go for the Cloud Goat Ranger, I think. God Eternal Oketra triggers and we get a 4/4 Black Zombie. And then that thing comes down and we end up with a bunch of goat tokens. The zombie is going to give us the most damage, so let's put the Greaves over there. And it might be that we have to discard our hand next turn, but we've got a really good board state at least. So it might be also that our opponent's actually looking for a board wipe here. A board wipe would be, that wouldn't be the best actually, because it would force us to discard our hand and we'd lose all our creatures, which is pretty much the only advantage we've got at the moment. And it is a big advantage, but if our opponent wipes here, they have Damnation mana. Then deciding to untap. Yeah, so our advantage here is having so many good creatures in play. And there's a sack outlet for them, so they can now sacrifice the Mind Slicer and go in for a 5 CMC spell. A 5 CMC creature specifically. So we discard our hand. Oh, and I didn't move the Greaves back over onto Oketra, so that might be an issue as well if they go in for something. Yeah, a Shriekmaw going on to our commander, so getting punished for forgetting about the Lightning Greaves there. Commentary can be very distracting sometimes. We could just keep it from going into the graveyard. Yeah, let's actually have this go into the command zone this time. And then if we don't draw into anything next turn, we've got the option of casting our God Eternal Oketra. And then this Shriekmaw does have fear, but we've got a 4/4 zombie for them to swing into. So no worries there. Getting a lot of work out of this coercive portal this game. And Meren has 0 cards in hand, as you would expect. They have thrown into the bin the Grave Troll, the Grave Titan. They've got Skura Tribelder, Evolutionary Leap, the Disciple of Bolas, and a bunch of lands by the looks of it. Yeah, they've cast these things. Oh, Yawgmoth Ramphysician is in there as well. Best not forget about Yawgmoth. Return to Dust, I think, is really good. So apparently should have put the God Eternal Oketra into the bin, because we could have drawn into that next turn, but we didn't know what we were going to draw into. So it's good to have the option. Now we go Cloudgoat Ranger's ability, tap down the Kithkins. We'll be able to deal some damage here. It might be that our opponent wants the Shriekmaw in the bin, but we'll give them something to think about here anyway. And I'll put the Lightning Greaves onto the Cloudgoat Ranger as well. They are blocking with Shriekmaw. That wouldn't have killed them, but it would have put them down to 1 life. So next turn, unless they can wipe the board or get rid of this thing, we can just swing in for lethal next turn. Because that is a 5/3 flyer when we tap down the Kithkins. They're in top deck mode here as far as I can see. And our opponent drew into their card and it doesn't help them, so they see that we just swing in for lethal next turn. Yeah, made a mistake forgetting about the Lightning Greaves going onto our God Eternal Oketra, and it cost us our commander. But our opponent seemed to just blindly go for a Mind Slicer when I don't think they needed to. They actually had a Grave Titan in hand and ended up with the mana to cast it. I think they could have cast it last turn actually, so they would have had a Grave Titan and a bunch of tokens in play. That wouldn't have helped them against the Cloudgoat Ranger, but it would have kept us from dealing damage with the Zombie Warrior still, so might not have helped them either way, but I think going for the Grave Titan over the Mind Slicer would have been a better idea. But yeah, I don't know my opponent's deck as well as I'm sure my opponent does. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.